and unfortunately they'll miss my introduction right there. But I could jump straight to the agenda. And if you see my screen, so here's the agenda that we posted online and sent out on Friday. What we're doing right now is reviewing the agenda. Then we'll discuss all the things that have happened since our last steering committee meeting, full one. The big thing being all the master plan subcommittee meetings, of which some are still going on, including just this morning. That'll continue. That's the land use one, and there's a lot to cover. So we've had additional meetings. And then and some of the other things like the open house that I know a few of you were able to attend, and some other meetings that we've had. And then we'll follow that up with what is coming up between now and the expected date of adoption of the plan on November 9th, how we're getting there and what those meetings will look like as well. So with that being said, Michael and Elaine, I can hand it over to you.
Sure, and feel free to fill in any blanks, Justin. Pardon my voice. The change in weather has brought a change in my allergies, so I'm a little froggy today. But yeah, we want to bring you up to speed. As most of you know, because we've been meeting with the master plan subcommittees, we started digging in with the municipal, what we call the municipal resource interviews and briefings. Back in February, March of this year. And that was to talk with some of the technical folks within the municipality who deal with issues that we're dealing with in the master plan. That included engineering. We've had several meetings with engineering and zoning office. We've also met with historic preservation and recreation folks as well, and they were helpful in trying to distill issues and provide guidance in how we would develop the elements and the information that would form the basis of the discussions with the master plan subcommittees. The master plan subcommittee process began back in April and May, and it went into, well, as Justin said, it's still going on currently with a few of the committees, and that process really involved coming in with the analysis that we had done so far, and some of the information that we had gleaned from the municipal representatives that were in the more technical nature, and then working through with the subcommittees the general goals and objectives and developing recommendations back and forth with those elements. And the text of those elements of the master plan elements have been refined with the subcommittees, and we're moving into the final phase of the final draft of the plan document that will be put on file. Additionally, we had a second community survey. That survey focused on some of the potentially transformative sites within town that are sort of up in the air or could change, and we got some feedback on that. There were listening sessions, and they were conducted by Justin and his staff. And I don't know the exact number of how many you did, Justin, but that was you were presenting the master plan elements to the public, but open questions times. It was really like, what do you want to see in here, and questions. But maybe you can clarify a little bit about the number.
Yes, yeah.
Format.
We had about 11 of them. 2 of them were kind of tabling ones, so maybe 9, and then 2 or 11 overall throughout the town. And it really was to show some of the things that we have already heard in terms of vision or in terms of some of the survey results from throughout the process, and then to ask people questions, particularly groups that we might not have heard from in those surveys, but to ask them questions going along with the elements, things like what do you want to see in Princeton, that you have to go to other towns for, how do you get around town, and what are the troubles with that, those sorts of things. And luckily a lot of the members of either this steering committee or the planning board were able to attend a few of those. And then we compiled notes from me, my staff, and Louise was able to attend a bunch of them, and then sent them over to Michael and Elaine. I would say the big things that I took from those meetings, one was there are a lot more similarities between these groups and what they want than differences. An example is we heard about the need for better bike infrastructure from folks on the eastern side of town who were talking about getting students to school, a middle school student that couldn't get there, as well as service workers who might be using a bike at night as their only form of transportation. And others that live all the way up in the Northwest or along 27 that say, we essentially have to get everywhere by car right now. So there were a lot of similarities. And then secondly, a lot of what we have already found through all the other outreach was kind of reaffirmed through those meetings, but we were able to add to it or pinpoint additional things that we might not have seen before. An example of this is we know that we have many different transportation services in town. They're not necessarily coordinated, and the plan calls for that. But one that we didn't necessarily take into account was school buses or school drop-off. And a lot of folks, whether they were the parents that are in the cars in line or people that have to get across town at those, two or more than two pickup and drop off times a day, kind of reiterated that. And we can now think of that as part of our transportation system, which also I might add, Councilman Cohen from his perch as a crossing guard had a very interesting thought on that in the Town Topics recently about, you can drop the students off a couple blocks away and all those things. It was reaffirming to kind of hear and to be able to add into what we've already heard.
Yeah. We also met with the Princeton Public Schools Planning Committee. Got input from that group, and some of the things about school busing and drop-offs were echoed in that meeting as well. On September, we had a September open house, and the open house
29th, 27th, 27th.
Yes, September 27th, we had the second open house, and at that open house, we arrayed boards around the room representing each of the elements we're working on, with a little bit of analysis and also the big recommendations, so the big themes that are coming out of these elements based on the subcommittee recommendations and individual subcommittee recommendations, and
These were actually the goals.
The goals, yeah. Right? The goals and objectives. Additionally, we did bring in some demographic information that's going to be part of the general part of the master plan, with the assumptions and policy information. Really was revealing in terms of housing sizes versus family size, and we think that that's really part of the critical underpinnings of what some of the recommendations are, particularly with respect to land use and being able to get more housing and accessible and affordable housing within Princeton. As these elements were developed, of course, we have located these things on the engagement hub, and right now we are drafting these elements and working to finalize the final draft for putting it on file prior to the November 9th hearing. Any questions about what we've been doing since the last meeting? Anything? Okay. All right. So what's coming up? So on October 19th, we're going to make a presentation to the planning board, a public meeting. That will not be the hearing on the master plan or the adoption of the master plan, but that will bring in the major themes, the goals, and also the major recommendations that have been developed within each of the elements. And that'll allow for the entire planning board to hear what these themes are and ask questions about the draft elements. Any questions about the 19th? We're working with Justin to finalize that presentation. But we see it as, it's really a summary of the plan, with the goals, objectives, and recommendations.
And that'll be at the planning board, at their regular meeting. So they will be the ones behind the virtual dais. It's on Zoom, 7 PM, like all their meetings are. And I see Tim has his hand up.
Thank you, Justin. Just reminding the members of the steering committee that in your role as connectors, it would be great if you would spread the word about this briefing, even though it won't be an opportunity for public comment. That will come later. It'll certainly be informative and well worth the time for anyone who is interested in the future of the town.
And sorry, I didn't raise my virtual hand, but I just want to add, in case there's any question, the planning board is meeting only virtually. We are not in person at the municipal buildings, so Zoom is the way to tune in. If that wasn't already clear.
Okay. All right. So October 30th, that's the deadline for the plan to be on file 10 days in advance of the hearing on the 9th, which is required by the land use law. If you were to adopt that plan that night, you would have to have met the notice requirements and the filing requirements for having the plan available for review. So that's I think that's a Monday, October 30th.
Yep.
Right.
So when you say on file, you mean available for public, you mean available on the municipal website?
Yes,
Yeah.
it should be. Yeah, I would say on the website and have a hard copy as well, so that if somebody wants to come into the office, I assume that people can come to the office, Justin?
Yes, we don't right now have any COVID kind of, I shouldn't put it that way, but the restrictions are not the way they used to be. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
My recollections from doing housing plans is, yes, a hard copy has to be available in the municipal building someplace. It certainly also should be on file, and the notice of the hearing would direct people to that.
Yes.
And I'd be interested in adding, and I hope I don't regret saying this for my own sake, but we've discussed having office hours. Maybe we'd be able to do that at the library to show a copy of the plan and have staff on hand to answer any questions. But certainly we'd do that here as well.
Yeah, I think office hours are a good idea if we can fit that in, because someone might have questions, and just to allow people to have somebody that might be able to help them interpret things a little bit. I think that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that a draft copy has to be sent to the county and the state. Am I right about that? And then the adopted version as well? That's something for your planning board secretary to know, but.
Yeah, we're on that. We have all the notices ready, and sorry, I see Kristen's hands up. We have all the notices ready. It's all prepared, but the main point to take away is that meeting on the 19th is actually an extra meeting for the presentation. This is not like a council ordinance where there's an introduction and then we wait and there's a hearing. The only thing the municipal land use law says is have a hearing and have the document on file 10 days before. We're adding this additional step in there. And I know we all want to get to the complete pencils down part. The 30th will absolutely have to be that, but hopefully we could do it even before then and release the plan early. But the 19th does give us a little flexibility to continue to button down some of these things that, as has been said, we're still working on into today and into next week. And sorry, Kristen.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest, in addition to perhaps doing the listening session or conversation at the library, putting a hard copy at the library, 1 or 2 copies at the library, I think is a good thing to do. I know the university has always put copies of our when we had copies of a document at the library.
I think we could certainly do that, and I see Mr. Quinn nodding his head, so I'm gonna take that as permission. And I see David's hands up.
Yeah, I think this is the appropriate time to raise this question. I know that we've talked about having the possibility of an additional meeting at the planning board after that November 9th meeting. I wonder if you just want to talk about that a little bit. And I saw on the agenda that there was an additional steering committee meeting if needed. And I just want everyone to be aware of how you're thinking about all that.
Sure. I could tackle them kind of in what would be chronological order. So we have on the municipal calendar right now and on all the documents that we've sent out, that there would be another meeting of this group on October 30th. You could probably sense if we have to have the file or the document on file October 30th, we're factoring that into having this meeting. If there is a need to have a meeting with the full group, I'm certainly happy to do so. If that meeting was on October 30th and the file needed to be out that day, then, that would determine what we were to talk about. If we had to make it a little earlier, if we anticipated changes, we could explore doing that. I know there's some scheduling issues, or if we wanted to have it that day or later to discuss, anything we needed to, we just couldn't then make changes to then have that hearing on November 9th. So we'll have to weigh, really after having this meeting, potentially even after having that meeting on October 19th, having another meeting of this group if we would like. And then, so the additional meeting, as planners and a planning board, we always want to have a good plan or a plan B. We've tossed around the idea of having another planning board hearing or continuing that planning board hearing if there is an immense amount of public comment, which we fully anticipate there will be. So we can do that. November 30th is the day that we were thinking, kind of after the holidays and when we don't have a planning board meeting scheduled. Before that's a little tricky because of the holiday and the League of Municipalities conference. After that's a little tricky because of various holidays coming up, but we could always add more as we needed them. But
Yeah,
that'll probably be determined, on November 9th, I would say.
Right, and it's important to get it into the calendar, just so you're not scrambling on the 9th, to try to find a date when everybody's going to be there and you can continue the hearing.
Yeah, the planning board has been alerted to the likelihood in my mind that we would, not hear all public comment in one evening on the 9th and would likely meet again for a second night of public comment and hearing on the 30th.
Mm-hmm. And for those that are unfamiliar with the way that the planning board kind of operates, the meetings start at 7 and we have a pretty hard hard cutoff at 11. So having that first meeting on October 19th to prepare or to show the presentation will give us, a solid 4 hours to have a presentation, have board discussion, and really, get into some specifics of the plan. But then again, having it on November 9th for the hearing, we will, once again talk about what's in the plan, but give as much time as possible that night to public comment. So, ultimately there might be 3 hours of public comment that night. Who knows, maybe if we have so many hands there, then we do continue it. But our goal is to make sure everyone's voice can be heard. And, we're setting aside those meetings just to master plan discussions. We're not going to, have a 2-hour planning board case before or anything like that. Kristen?
Sorry, I'm full of questions. I just wanted to say, we've all been so involved in offering comments and participating in our subcommittees. And I know we were offered to provide comments to other committees, but I haven't been part of those other conversations to see where things are landing. I think it's a little, it just seems like too short of a time to expect that we'll have a meeting on October 30th and then sometime later that day, you're going to post a document when we as a committee will not have seen it before October 30th. So I would respectfully ask for a meeting or a sharing of the document the week before with the committee. And, you know, if you can't have another round of meetings, at least give us the opportunity to share comments to you, Justin.
Absolutely. I think, you know, what we'll try to do, and I'm looking for my calendar. You know, I mean, the goal is to get this document done as quick as possible. So this committee has time to review it. The public does. We're not saying we're only going to give the 30th, you know, no matter what, and we're going to sit on the report or anything like that. So the earlier we get it done, the happier, or, you know, I'm happy to share it with everyone. It's just the quirk of that scheduling that, if we need to move it up because we need to make changes, that's more of what we're talking about. If we're not going to make changes, then it could be the 30th or later. And Michael, I think I kind of stole your thunder then. I think you were going to go into the 9th and the steering committee meeting. Is there anything else?
No, I think we got to that. That's right. Yeah, and the rationale for the meeting on the 19th is really to give the big overview publicly, so that that's really the presentation, and give as much time as possible to the public comment on the 9th, and if necessary on November 30th. So.
And as we get the documents in, the final ones, you know, kind of per element or per section, I'm happy to share them with this group. The only caveat to that is because we still are discussing an element as big as land use, you know, it's obviously going to affect the goals that are in the vision section up front. And it's also going to, you know, affect community facilities or historic preservation or open space. So it's not as easy as, all right, we're going to get one thing done and check it off and then I could send it out. Or at least we're not sitting on anything right now. It is still very much in flux.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions about the process and time frame going forward? Anything I left out, Justin?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, we got through this pretty quickly, these agendas. So we are going to continue making the edits based on the subcommittee recommendations, and we're going to get these draft elements out as soon as we can for your final review. That's our plan.
So, and I will say a special thank you to the people who did read through and give us comments on all the elements, not just the ones they're on the subcommittees for.
Yep. Louise?
Yeah, which I did, which means I probably have too much time on my hands.
No, it's very.
So at the risk of, oh, I don't know what, I wonder if you would share with the steering committee in a sort of broad brush way. I know well, which elements are there any subcommittees that are still meeting other than land use?
I don't believe so, but we still are parsing through some comments either from staff or even from the open house and the listening sessions. So there might be things done by email if there's something that, you know, we need a subcommittee to look on. But other than that, I believe we're at the point with all of them that Clark Cainhans knows, you know, what changes to make from those most recent rounds of discussions.
Okay. And are things, I mean, are there, I know, I guess I want to ask another question about the land use without putting anybody on the spot or making things awkward. Do you feel like, I guess the land use group met this morning and is going to meet one more time. Is that likely to be enough?
I think so. I think the big difference with the land use element compared to most other elements is that the state keeps adding additional things in there that need to be a part of it. Most recently, they added a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment.
Right.
There are other things about electric vehicle charging stations, and just all these sorts of things that they've added in. Build out, I think that's what Michael just said. The part of the reason it's taking some time is because we need to, the subcommittee needs to make decisions on certain things that then affect the ability to do those other things. If they're still talking about a certain recommendation and that's going to change build out, we're doing what we can to work on all those things together, but it's not as simple as just you can't do the build out without doing the recommendations or incorporating it.
We need to understand in full the recommendations for the land use, the proposed land use, so that we can actually look at the climate change hazard related vulnerabilities and make statements relative to that on future land use.
And I will say, I mean, if you've looked at the land use element, it's a significant part of it that is taken up by this, and it's all new. There's nothing from the former borough or the former township that we can build on.
So I know from the, at least from what I've talked to folks about and overheard or overlistened at the open house, there was a lot of curiosity around the multifamily housing and how that would play out. And I'm wondering if you anticipate having for the 19th some, I don't know, images or other visuals that will help people to visually digest how certain types of, not specific zoning recommendations, but notions of density would look like or play out.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
And that's one of the things we're working with Justin on is in the presentation is how can we inform the more technical aspects with, making it legible and approachable for folks.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good to hear. I think I'm a visual person, and I know there's a lot of us out there, and including on the board. And I think it's important, especially for the board members who are seeing and learning the details for the first time on the 19th. And there aren't very many. Most members of the board are part of this group or, have been at listening sessions and open houses and whatnot. I'm not suggesting that board members are not in the loop or not informed, but some people will. Anyway, thank you. I'm glad to hear that, and I think it'll make a difference.
And if I could add to that, one of the great things about Princeton is that we don't have to go very far to find any of these housing types that are being recommended in this plan. We already have them. They're in neighborhoods. They function well. They look good. You've probably been inside them too, or the person that lives in a certain type or whatever. So it's not like we have to go out and get stock images or try to conceptualize these things. It's more of a matter of, hey, let me go over to Spruce Street and take a picture of that building that has 5 units tucked away, or let me go to this one that has row houses on John Street or whatever else, and we'll certainly do that.
Great, thank you.
Yes, David, sorry, I cut you in line.
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention it's on the same topic, but at the land use subcommittee meeting this morning, Justin shared an image from a website illustrating what types of housing would be considered missing middle housing. And it was really dramatically helpful because it sort of showed them all in a row, from sort of less dense to more dense. Really, really helpful in terms of understanding the range. We weren't sure whether there are copyright concerns with using an image like that in the master plan, but I guess we could try to do what Justin was just talking about, where we try to picture things that photograph things that are actually in Princeton, but arrange them in such a way that it makes the same point.
And I'd be happy to show that image now. I'm sure it's not copyrighted to show it on Zoom.
Yeah.
This is
Around, yeah.
Optico's design firm out of the Bay Area. They actually have a really good book about missing middle housing, and they've kind of coined the term. And this is the image that it would be great if we could show, because really what this is trying to tell, and let me just make sure you can actually see what I'm trying to show. Yes, is a lot of places allow for detached single family houses and allow for large apartment buildings if they allow for them at all. But there's a whole range of housing types within the middle, many of which exist in Princeton, both in the former borough and former township. And, having that variety in housing type is something that this plan and the land use element are keying in on, because it essentially, a lot of our neighborhoods are built based on these, but then, we've legislated away from it. This just shows how they could be reintroduced to keep neighborhood character the way it is.
Gee, if only we knew an architect who would be able to create something Princeton specific that we could include in the master plan.
What's it worth to you, Tim?
I don't get to allocate taxpayer money anymore. So
Okay. Well, that's helpful.
Yeah, we'll try to
Does-
track down
does-
copyright information for that.
Thanks for,
Oh, Ms. Satterfield.
Yeah, on 60 Minutes, there were architects talking about the kind of houses that they're building for people who can't afford houses. And maybe we ought to look into those architects, because these people are able to move into houses that don't cost too much. And I'm concerned about the Witherspoon Jackson area because it's becoming very dense. But it's with people who have money, and those people of us who live here are not able to stay here, and we need to spread the wealth to other neighborhoods in Princeton.
Certainly. Was that a recent episode? Was that just last night?
It was on yesterday.
Okay.
These architects who are building houses of some kind of material. I don't know that much about architecture, but they were building small houses for people, and basically they were homeless people that they're building. So you might want to look into that. We don't have that many homeless people, but still we have people who need housing.
Certainly. Thank you.
Yeah.
I turned CBS off after the Jets won, so.
Oh, well, that's what
didn't get
I
60
turned it on
minutes.
watching the Jets on 60 Minutes.
okay. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to getting these elements finalized and getting the presentation ready for the 19th. So we'll be
And we
talking
will
soon.
try to have
Okay.
final draft documents over as soon as possible before that.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I was really hoping that
Yeah,
that could happen on October 20th, immediately after the, I hope and trust that's what you're working toward. I'm sorry. Yeah, I had to talk to.
I want,
And I'll continue to coordinate both with members of the steering committee and for members of the public for those meetings that might be moved around. We'll be sure to put them on the municipal calendar and send out emails as well.
Okay. Thanks again, folks.
all right, great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Go Phils.
I'm ending the
Go
webinar.
Liberty, go Liberty.